I think that we beat ourselves up. This is going to kind of go against what I said about my tattoo and slowing down, but it makes sense. Just stay with me. I think that we beat ourselves up and we feel like we did something wrong, like we fucked up, we made a mistake, whether it's sending an unhinged text to an ex-boyfriend or staying for too long in a relationship. But I think that our mistakes are what make our stories, and our stories are what make our lives.
Yeah.
So if we miss out on the mistakes and the stories, like we're not even living.
Right.
So just do the thing you really want to do. Trust yourself more than anything. And just trust that it's all happening the way that it's supposed to.
Born in 92 on the block with the Sharks. Come from a different cloth, y'all would get ripped apart. You want it diamond, then you gotta get it in the dark. We dropping nuggets like Carmelo went to Rucker Park. Now we eating from state to state, we scrape the plate. I put my eggs in a basket, took a leap of faith. I took a chance, now we grow and see the impact. Decoding success with special guests, now let's bring that.
Welcome to the Decoding Success podcast, top 1% globally ranked show. Thanks to you. Appreciate you tuning into this episode and every other episode. If it's your first time joining, we are so excited to have you here. And furthermore, if you are a returning member of our community, welcome back. Today we have an incredible individual that's joining us. But before introducing her in two different ways, by the way, if you haven't been picking up on what we're doing, we're reading that professional bio and then a personalized intro based on the interactions I've had with our guests. But I want to plant the seed in your mind that you are tuned into this episode for a reason. There's going to be something within this that you have been guided to by a greater power, maybe just by chance, but you could be doing anything else in this world, scrolling Netflix, doom scrolling TikTok, or whatever it is that people do these days. But you're here. Out of 7 million podcasts, out of 300,000-ish active podcasts, you chose this one and this particular episode out of the 330 plus episodes that we have done. So take that into consideration as a seed planted for when you're going through this episode, because there's something within here that you have been guided to. Now, today we are joined by a worldwide best-selling author, host and creator of not only the top-rated podcast, but that of which has millions of downloads, and a change agent for women as she leads and liberates, guiding women to trust their intuition and create their own opportunities. And honestly, I'm just going to sprinkle something in here. Like, she's helping men too, right? By helping women, like, there's things that us men can pick up on. Now, this individual joining us today, this is the personalized intro from my interactions and engagements with her and her content. This individual joining us today is a woman who leverages her courage to be vulnerable as a tool to create feelings of being seen, heard, and understood for countless people. She is intentional with her vulnerability to ensure it's for empowerment and not for attention. An expressionist, Cara Alwill. Welcome to the show.
Can I hire you, like, to write my bios? It's pretty good.
Well, I just did this in the car.
Okay, pretty good. Thanks.
On
I'm into
the way
it.
here. Yeah, I always like to personalize the intro just based on, like, what I see. Like, it's cool to, like, read the accolades and stuff, but it's like, who are you as a person?
Yeah.
You know, and I try to bring that in, and I really do feel like you are someone who is obviously very courageous. Like, without a doubt, you are super, super courageous for what you put out into the world. And I don't get the inkling or the vibe from you that you're doing so, like, hey, see me or give me attention. It's like, I'm sharing this because, like, I want to help other people. You know, like, hair on my arm is, like, literally standing up right now. Yeah, like, I always get that from you. Like, whenever I'm seeing a piece of content, when other, like, conversations we've had and whatnot. How do you share so vulnerably yet intentionally?
It's so weird. Like, I don't try. Like, I have to. It's like a compulsion. Like, I feel like I have to share. I feel like if we don't learn something from our experiences in life, and if we don't share them with people, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right? Especially the pain, especially the harder times. So it gives me, like, a purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I don't, I'm just keeping everything in, and it's, like, for nothing. So it's like, it's not like I'm trying to be brave today. It's like it's just like in me.
Yeah. Do you feel like everyone has to share to the capacity you do, or is there, like, another way for someone to share? Like, what's the other way for someone to share?
I don't think so. I think it's a natural thing. Like, I love leading. Like, like, even since, like, I was a little kid, like, I would be the person in school to, like,
were you the line leader?
Yeah, kind of. I was, like, a little bossy. So it's like, that's just who I am. Like, if I see something happening, like what I was telling you about the reader series, like, I see something going on, I'm like, I want to start my own. Like, I just kind of feel that's just inherently who I am. So I just encourage people to, like, if it feels right to you, do it in anything in life. Like, you don't have to share just because everybody online is sharing. It's just happens to be what I love to do, and I happen to turn it into a job.
Why do you love leading, though? Does it have anything to do with having control?
No. Well, maybe. No, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that I see avenues in which things can be done or done differently, not necessarily better, but like differently. And I'm like, let me take a stab at it. Like, why wait for somebody to pick you? You know, why wait to be chosen? That's why I self-publish my books. That's why I create my own events. And I think that there's always room to do it with like your unique twist. And I see a lot of things being done. And I'm like, I would do it differently. I would do it maybe better. You know, like let me try. And it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one thing to realize. Like, it's not just because I do something, I don't think it's always going to be a success, but I learn from it, and I have, you know, I really need to do things and to create to feel fulfilled as a person. Different things. Definitely multi-passionate. So it's not really control as much as it is just like experience and fun, really.
Yeah. Do you think everyone's meant to be a leader?
No, not at all.
You had that answer so quick.
Well, it's important to say that, right? Even entrepreneurship, like, it's so sexy, like on Instagram, like, I'm a boss babe, I'm an entrepreneur, but like not everybody has the chops to do it. And I don't even mean that in a way of like not everyone's talented enough. It's hard work.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 16 years. Like, you are constantly reinventing yourself. So many sleepless nights, so many times when nobody's backing you up, when no one sees the potential. I mean, I just recently took a huge risk in my business, and I'm not making a lot of the, you know, same sales, same money that I used to make when I was doing things one way. Like, I'm intentionally shifting, and there's a lot that comes with that. And people don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. What was the risk?
Shifting into more of my creative work, shifting into the content that I'm writing about now, which is dating and relationships, when I was known for coaching female entrepreneurs, which I still do, but definitely shifting into doing live events, like the reader series that I was just telling you about, focusing on my blog. And those things don't bring in the same money as like, here's a course on how to start a podcast or how to, you know, and I still do those things.
Yeah, I've seen that
but
recently.
they're not my main focus. Like, they're aspects of the business, but my energy is definitely focused in a different direction now.
Do you think someone should, and I mean, I'm speaking to myself. First of all, I will share, like, I do not think everyone's cut out for entrepreneurship. In fact, like, season to season, I could tell you right now, like, I'm not cut out for it. Like, I pivoted away from my business. I still have my agency open, but like, definitely hear what you're saying there. Did I just lose my question? Where was I going with that?
Not everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship.
No, it was something we were just talking about.
Pivoting, taking a risk, courses.
Oh, yes. Okay, perfect, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing me back to that. You have, like, you're doing more than one thing, right? Which is incredible. Do you feel like someone should focus on one thing before trying like a whole bunch of different things, like kind of like breaking through that wall of obscurity or whatever it may be? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I think so. And I don't think it's for the reason people think. I don't think it's necessarily just for your audience. I think it's to keep yourself engaged with something and really commit to it. So when I started, I was a blogger. You know, like, I just wanted to write. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write my blog, and that's what I really did. Then I introduced coaching into it years later. So I started blogging in 2008, and I started coaching in 2012.
Okay.
So I gave like 4 years just to writing and telling my stories. So I definitely think that you need to kind of hone in on something, but not necessarily in the way that we're told, like, have a niche, you know, just talk about one thing, but just give your all to one thing, and then you can sort of like sprinkle things in later on as you learn.
What called you to blogging?
Oh God, it's a really
like, why
long
wasn't
story.
it podcasting back then?
Well, it was 2008, so podcasts were not like what they are, but I'm a writer. So for me, like, I love my podcast and I'll always podcast, but the written word is an art form to me, and I just love to write. Like, it's like, I love music. I can't write a song to save my life, but if I could, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So my writing is like the closest thing to that.
How did you know that you loved writing?
I wrote a book when I was like 9 or something.
9
in
years
school.
old?
Well, no, book. I'm like air quotes book.
Okay.
It was like a story that I told as a part of a project for school, and I was obsessed. It was called The Cat Who Couldn't Fit In.
The Cat Who Couldn't Fit In.
Yes, it was kind
What
of
was
poignant.
that
It was about so crazy. I've never told this publicly. It was about a cat that was like orange.
Okay.
And all the cats in school are black and white. So like, it was like a story about racism, really. I didn't even like realize I was doing this at the time. But the cat like made a sweatsuit out of like black and white spots to look like the other cats because he didn't want to be orange.
Goodness.
But like, I loved telling stories. Like, I saw things, you know, like, grew up in Brooklyn in a diverse neighborhood, and I saw things going on, and I was like, oh, I want to tell a story about this. So I did it. And it was on like canvas. Okay. So like, I went to like I got my mom to take me to the craft store.
Yeah.
And I crafted it. She still has it. It has like felt letters. I bought those like little eyeballs that like, you know, like
absolutely.
And I wrote the story, and it's so funny because I loved it. Like I thought I was like this like professional author, and I wrote my about the author page. And I used a class picture of myself. Remember the class pictures with like the lasers in the background?
Absolutely.
And I wrote a whole bio. So funny. Like apparently I was going to like live on a farm in Virginia with horses and
that is
5 children.
I mean, at 9 years old, the fact that you did all of that,
in
I'm
4th
like,
grade.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like upset, and I just knew. So that's like, yeah,
That's super impressive. Like, were you reading books to even know about like an author page? I mean,
No, you want to know what's even more psychotic? So I didn't like to read, and I just started reading in the past couple of years. I just like to create and write, and I had to do a book report once, and I made up the book. Like it wasn't. I wrote a book report on a fabricated book, and my mom found out. She was like, "Cara, you can get in trouble for that." And I was like, "I don't care. I got an A+."
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
I don't know if
super
that's like creative or if that's like sociopathic. It's one or the other.
I mean, I would say it's creative. I would definitely go down the path of creative. Did you ever, back in the day, submit book reports to school and get like free Pizza Hut or something?
No, why? What's that?
That's
Is that
what
a thing?
that was a
Really?
thing for me in like 5th and 6th grade.
They gave you free pizza.
If you submitted a book, Pizza Hut or KFC, it was.
Was it sponsored?
No,
Interesting.
Maybe it was. I don't know, but it was like a whole initiative. So I never made up a book, but I just always lied because I wasn't reading. Which is why I'm so impressed that by like 4th grade, like you knew all of that, like author page, this, that, or the other. But I'm curious, did you feel like you were the cat that was in the story?
Probably to some extent. I think every kid does, right?
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe I'm very empathetic. So maybe like I saw a cat that I felt for. I don't know. I don't remember, to be honest. It was so long ago. But I definitely, I mean, I think every kid is bullied. Every kid feels somewhat of an outcast at some point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was definitely channeling something.
Do you think that currently today, Cara, who she is now, like, do you still feel like you are different, quote unquote?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I never feel like I fit. Maybe that is why I like to lead and create things, because I like joke around that like I attract all like the misfits into my world, and I say that lovingly because like I think that's amazing to be a misfit. I don't want to fit in with everybody, and everyone that I like bring into the fold is like I feel somebody that's like interesting and like unique and kind of like offbeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I for sure feel that way.
Do you have advice for someone that might be in a similar position where yes, they know they're different, but like, how do you embrace your own differences?
You just have to own it. You know, I think you just have to own it. Like I notice when I'm attracted to other people, men, women, just as a person, I'm attracted to people who are definitely quirky, definitely weird, and like in their own like worlds. I think it's like very evident when somebody's trying to fit in and trying to do things like everybody else. We see that online every day, right? So I pay attention to what I'm attracted to, and then I just like remind myself of that.
Yeah.
When I want to feel like okay doing something that might be a little different.
Well, I think now in society, what we're seeing is that people are trying to be different by being that quirky type of person, right? Like even like style these days is so different. And it's like, are you trying to be Kanye, or like, are you trying to be yourself?
Yeah, it has to be authentic, and people can also sense that, right? Like you know when somebody's not authentic. It's like, to me, that's the number one thing that I notice in a person. Yeah. Right away, I'm like, okay, you're like a try hard, you know, like we used to say as kids, like, and I or a wannabe or whatever, poser, and I can tell. Yeah. So it has to be natural. Like, don't be unique just for the sake of being unique, but like just see what's inside of you that you feel like you want to express. And I think like when you're like, I don't know, I love weirdos. So I'm like, the weirder the better. Like if you're weird, just like bring it. Yeah. People love that.
I think there's a quote. It's by the world's most famous doctor. He said, "There's no one in the world youer than you that just so happens to be truer than true."
Dr. Seuss. I quoted that in one of my books.
Good old Dr. Seuss, you know? And I think so many people do the opposite of that, you know? And I was one of them for sure. It's like, hey, fit in, or do this because it looks cool, or drive this because, you know, what it says status-wise, you know? But I appreciate that, like just hearing this from you, because I really still feel like that's a message that needs to be delivered no matter how many times someone hears it, you know? And I think more and more, like, it's still happening. Like, I go back to style because I see it now, just like driving down the street to get to the studio, and it's like everyone is dressed the same. Everyone, including myself to an extent. Like, I'm wearing aloe socks because they look cool.
But that's what trends are, right? They want you to jump on the bandwagon to make the money, to promote the brand. That's why, like, when you see influencers like posting, everyone posts the same handbag or something. Yeah. And I always notice that. I'm like, everyone's buying this $5,000 bag that looks like it could have come out of Marshall's or TJ Maxx. Like, why are you buying it? Because everybody else has it? That's why I like vintage so much.
I was just going to bring that up. Like, you are all about vintage.
Yeah, I love vintage.
What about vintage, like, pops to you or, like calls you?
So many things. I think number one, like, you know it when you see it. Like, you'll know, like, if somebody's wearing something that is not common or, like, out there. I just love telling people it's vintage. Like, where'd you get that? I'm like, it's vintage. And it also tells a story.
Well, that makes you different.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's not like, hey, I didn't go to Soho to pick up this bag. Like, it's vintage.
Right.
You know?
And I think I'm so into energy, and I feel like anything that's vintage, like, tells a story. Like, I'm always curious, like, who wore that? Like, this is like my grandmother's wedding band, and I wear it, and I'm like, but it was my grandfather's mother. So it was like a story behind all of it. So I just think it's fascinating.
I love that.
Yeah.
What about energy are you into? When people say that,
everything.
What does that mean though?
Oh my God, everything. I can sense it. You feel it. Like, it just, I don't know. I clear my energy all the time.
Are you a highly sensitive person?
Yeah.
NHSP?
Is that what it's called? Did you make that up? Or
I did not make that up. One person in 31 years of life shared that with me. They're like, Matt, I think you're an HSP.
Yeah.
I was at a basketball game, and it was like the heat of the moment in this game, and I'm like, why the fuck is my heart racing like I'm the one playing?
Yeah.
And it's because, like, everyone around me was just like in an uproar. Everyone's cheering, and I'm like, am I okay?
Yeah. Well, you just said you got like goosebumps. Like, you
I
feel
get that
things.
often.
Yeah, same.
I get that often.
Same.
I get that often. Hey everyone, pausing this episode to share something with you. In a world of hyper competitiveness, I think the best quote that I can share with you is that there is no one in the world youer than you, and that is truer than true, which is exactly why I wanted to share with you today about Brand Builders Group. It's an organization I've been working with over the last few months. It is absolutely incredible, and today I am sharing with you the opportunity to hop on a free brand call with a brand strategist to help you break through the wall of obscurity. We are in a hyper competitive space at the moment, whether it be on social or with your podcast or with your blog or with your books or getting on stage. No matter what your endeavor is, this is an opportunity for you to hop on a free strategy call with someone from the team to be able to help you navigate the waters of making sure that you are breaking through the wall and taking advantage of all of the opportunities that you most definitely deserve. Again, there is no one in the world youer than you. So no matter what the problem is that you solve, there might be other people that are out there that also solve the same problem, but there is a strategy that can be placed into your initiatives that will help you break through that wall with speed. So I want to share this with you. It is freebrandcall.com/Matt Labrie. That is going to be in the show notes of this episode, whether you're tuned in from audio or through YouTube, whatever it is, freebrandcall.com/Matt Labrie. That's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like that not many people are in tune with energy. I think it's somewhat rare to an extent. It's becoming, I want to say, more normalized, but when I hear someone share that, it's like, okay, like, are you? Like, what about energy are you actually, picking up on? So I'm curious, like, when you're in a situation, like, how do you navigate energy? Like, you live in New York City.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I will say, so speaking of apartments, one of my apartments that I used to live on 14th Street in the East Village, it faced traffic. So it was like was between First Avenue and Avenue A. And I never slept in that apartment. Like, I just would always feel unsettled. And then I moved into a different space and it was quiet and I just immediately like slept better. So you pick up on little things like that.
Yeah.
People's vibes. So here's an example. You're in the same space I am, right? So you reach out to different people, try to connect with them. There's been times when I've tried to connect with other women, like as friends, like, hey, do you want to go like grab a coffee or something or connect? And they'll just like completely blow me off, like not answer me. Like, I can see that they read my message or like I've reached out emails. It goes on.
Interesting.
And then I'll notice and I'll kind of like keep following them. And I'm like, oh, they're kind of like negative, or they kind of have this like side to them that like I probably wouldn't vibe with them anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, is that the universe just like reminding me that like just they're repelled by you for whatever reason because you're different, and not to say better or worse, just different energy. So yeah, I don't know. It's like you either vibe with somebody, you don't. Like, even in a store, right? Like, you're having an exchange with like a cashier. You're in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you just have that moment with somebody where you're just like smiling and you make small talk, or you just don't and they're like nasty, or you're in a like, you just know.
Yeah. What does Josh and I's energy give you?
Very good. I'm picking up good
we have
vibes
very
in this
good
room.
Vibes? Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I definitely feel at times I like to be high vibe. I guess that's what it's called. But there's definitely times. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not all the time. That's for sure.
It's interesting, though, what you say about like not being able to sleep in the apartment and just like changing your environment. I feel like the stimuli of like our environments are so wild, like to think, you know, whether it's noise, sound, whether it's like, I don't know, who knows? Maybe someone lived in that apartment before you and it was just like super unsettled energy.
We just talked about this yesterday. My mom was saying that the first apartment that she moved into in Stuytown, she found out that the woman had killed herself in the apartment.
God.
And somebody else, no, the woman died in her apartment and somebody above killed themselves in the bathtub. And she wound up leaving that apartment, not for that reason, but she just didn't want to stay there anymore.
Yeah.
And she wound up finding something that was more like, you know, located in a better block. But like, it's just, it's weird.
Yeah. Are you like one to walk around with the sage
Totally.
counterclockwise? And
Oh my God, I sage myself all the time.
Do you?
All the time.
I've done it once. I've never done it before.
Oh my God, especially after dates, like a bad date, or you break up with somebody, you have to sage your bed. It's like a whole thing. I actually got a new bed when I moved because I was like, there's not enough sage in the world that's going to clear that space.
Oh my goodness. You take it to that level, huh?
Yeah, totally.
What do you feel like would happen if you didn't, like, for example, get the new bed?
I mean, I don't know. Like weird, like energy just like stays with you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it would have just like clouded my choices or just like made me feel some kind of way, or I don't know. It's just, it's a thing. It could be a placebo effect. Who knows? But I just know that I feel better when I do it.
Yeah.
Not always buying a new bed, but like saging myself. I did that once. I did that once.
I was like, all right, how much of that can one do? Like, you know, are you going to like buy a new couch like after every relationship or something?
But sage is cheap, right? You keep the same bundle of it. You just kind of like go through and like, I usually like say like a little prayer or something when I do it.
What's the process of using sage?
So you burn it, obviously, and like, you let it smoke, and then you just kind of like, you start like, you're supposed to start like in the, like your doorway basically, and you go clockwise around your room into the corners, like into the closets, and then just you say like a little prayer that feels good to you. So like, usually I'm like, you know, please, like, universe, send this energy back to wherever it came from, you know, and I say whatever, and then you open your windows and you let the air flow out. And it's just supposed to clear the space.
See, that's what I didn't do the first time I did it. You nailed it. Like, I guess, like, I posted it because, like, it was cool. Like, I'm saging my room.
And it's new. You're interested in it. Yeah.
But I didn't open the windows, and someone was like, well, Matt, like, the energy's not going anywhere. There's nowhere for it to escape. And I was like, oh, okay. Interestingly enough, as we're having this conversation, it dawns on me, an Italian woman from Brooklyn is into energy. That's not common, I feel like.
Well, yes and no, right? So I was raised Catholic, and I'm not religious anymore, but I'm very spiritual. And I think that a lot of like the energy spiritual practices are so tied into religion. Like my psychic is fully Catholic.
Yeah.
Like she's hardcore into the saints. So she told me like last time she thought somebody this is hilarious. She thought someone put a spell on me. So she told me that I have to pray to St. Michael because he's the protector, and I should get the St. Michael oil. So she brings like a religious spin into it, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's more common than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also Roman Catholic. I mean, I grew up that way. I went to Catholic school my whole life. I just said this, I feel like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when we were in the studio, I had a gentleman, Dan Millman, from, have you ever seen The Peaceful Warrior?
No.
It's a really good movie. It's a long movie, but if you've never seen it, it's like, have a notebook next to you. It's like all gems. And I said to him, I was like, you know, growing up Roman Catholic, we were talking about astrology. That's how it came up. I was like, yeah, you're taught, like, not to believe in anything other than the Bible, not to believe in anything other than God, right? But then I said to him, I'm like, well, you know, my mind goes to, if God created someone with the ability to have psychic powers or, you know, tap into someone that may have passed away or whatever it may be, to me, that's like, why wouldn't you leverage that tool if they're created by God?
My friend said the same thing. She's very Catholic and she believes in astrology, and she's like, well, God created the stars, God created the sky, the ocean, the moon, like all of these things that like astrologers or cosmic spiritual people talk about. So I agree.
I mean, thinking about it, like, what did Mary and Joseph do when they were en route to, I think it's Bethlehem, right? I don't know, maybe I'm not the best theologist, but like they looked for the North Star, right? That's astrology.
It's
like
all part
it's
of our
referenced
universe
in the Bible, you know?
There are a lot of people that get very insulted and very triggered by it, and I think it's funny. So I am always like, God/the universe, like whatever you believe. My friend Noah is like, all the mail gets forwarded to the same place. Right? We're all praying to something, some higher power. So whatever you want to call it and feels good to you, call it that. That's why I don't subscribe to a religion, because I just saw so many hypocrisies and things with the Catholic religion that I just couldn't get behind, and I still kind of can't. So
Yeah.
it's a personal thing, you know? But I think there's
Absolutely.
so much of it that I do still take with me.
Yeah.
I still pray. I still say God, you know? Go to church when I feel like I want to go to church, light
Sure.
my candles.
I mean, churches are beautiful.
They are.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
They're
And I
so
mean, they
nice.
light incense in church, right?
Yeah.
That's something that's done in spiritual practices. I light incense. That's meant to clear energy. So they are really tied in.
Yeah. What was it that made you expand spiritually? Like, was there a particular moment, or was it just like over the course of time?
I think over the course of time.
Okay.
But astrology might have been my gateway drug into it.
Okay.
Like
You
just
dabble
learning
with
about
astrology?
I do.
Okay.
What sign are you? Did we talk about this? I feel like I asked you already.
I mean, I do know it. I went to one astrologer recently. My issue is I don't know the time I was born. So
oh, that's your birth chart. That's different.
okay. That's different.
But what-
Well, I'm a Libra.
Libra. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a
Interesting.
Libra.
That kind of clocks. That makes sense.
Why does that make sense?
You just have Libra qualities.
What does that mean, though?
Libras they like to be liked, like they're people,
Okay.
right? They like, so you have a show, a podcast, you talk to people, they love
Yeah.
relationships, right? They are charismatic, they're balanced. There's some toxic traits of Libra. I don't know you that well, so I really can't say.
Well, what are the toxic traits? And I'll be honest.
They kind of love attention.
A past me loved attention.
Yeah, I dated a Libra. I
Yeah.
dated a few Libras. Most recently dated a Libra.
Are you projecting your past onto Libras, or is this like a known fact?
No, my nephew's a Libra, so I can't say anything about it. And so is one of my best friends. So I don't. But there's, like every sign,
Yeah.
every person has sides
Pros
to
and
them.
cons.
Right.
Yeah, for
right.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I did my first reading. I want to say like two-ish years ago with
Mm-hmm.
a gentleman named Bob Cook. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you need to go to Bob. You need to go to Bob." I'm like, "All right, well, get me in touch with fucking Bob. Like if I need to
Right.
go to Bob." So I went, and it was really good. Like
Yeah.
the only thing was like some of the things he shared, I feel like didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's not all always going to work,
Yeah.
right? Was this a psychic that you went to, Bob?
No,
Or
I
is
think
Bob
he's an astrologer. I mean, I could look it up.
But did he do like a reading for you? Kind of.
Yeah, he needed like my birthday, and he needed like all of that stuff. Bob Cook, astrologer, popped up right away. Bob Cook, astrologer.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was good. It was like 30 minutes, and I felt like a lot of. So this is an interesting. I feel like a lot of what he shared happened later than he said it would.
Yeah.
Like he told me someone. Now I'm just realizing this. He told me someone would pass away. My grandfather just passed, but it literally happened like a year after he said it would happen.
Yeah. Timelines don't always like
Match,
check
right?
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them will tell you that too.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've done it one time. Like I'm open to it. I've had my soul read before.
What's that like? I've never seen.
A woman named Sonia Choquette. She's been on the show. She's fantastic. I'm not cheap, but it's fucking expensive.
Wait, did you tell me about this? You might have mentioned
might
it on our
have.
last. Okay.
I might have. It's like $600 for 30 minutes.
Wow.
It's not cheap, but the minute we hopped on the call, I'm telling you, like 3 minutes in, I was crying.
Wow.
Like she just knew so much about me, and I'm like, does she do research or like
Right.
what? Like she didn't know my last name or anything. Like it's
Wow.
just first name, day you were born, no time, like that's it. And I was just like, holy shit, like why does this feel so true? There were so many things that were shared, and just like the way that it came about, like how I even ended up doing this was like so out of the blue. I was like, I have to. Like it was an old coworker who is not like into like the woo-woo type of stuff at all. And he was like, dude, just do it. And I did. And I was like blown away.
Wow.
Absolutely blown away. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, do you believe in like souls going from life to life, knowing
Yeah.
that? Okay, you do.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's obviously different than Catholicism.
Yes.
Right. And
Yep.
Christianity and whatnot. But she had mentioned like when I was getting the reading, she was like, Matt, your soul is, I've always been told that I'm more mature than my age.
When you said 31, I was like, what?
Always. Like
Yeah.
that like going all, granted, I was also very immature when I was still hearing
Right,
that, you know,
right.
like 17 years old. Like, to be honest, I always just thought it was life making me grow up fast. Like trauma makes you grow up fast, right?
Not for everybody though.
True.
Yeah.
True. Right.
Yeah.
So when she said that, she was like, your soul has traveled like horizontally and vertically. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
So she's like, you in different lifetimes have had like different like you've traveled to different places, which is the horizontal, but vertically is like career wise. So she's like, you've been a teacher, you've been a priest, you've been this. She's like, does that make sense? She's like, what do you do now? I was like, well, I have a podcast. She goes, sounds to me like it makes sense. So it was a really cool thing. Like it was just
cool.
like very much so in alignment in so many different ways. But we're gonna have to get you your soul read.
Yeah, I was told I've been men in my past lives by someone.
That's interesting. I've never heard anyone say that.
She's
so
like,
your
you've always
soul,
been men. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And as a painter, I don't know. I've heard some weird shit. Like I've been to like a million.
Okay,
of these
well that
things.
makes sense, right? Because like even as I introed you, I called you an expressionist
Oh, yeah,
instead of
that's
an
true.
artist.
Yeah.
An expressionist. I think obviously they're one and the same to an extent.
Yeah.
But like, what you do now is art.
That's what I really feel that way. And I say this to a lot of people who are creatives. I'm like, you're an artist before you're an entrepreneur. Like I kind of don't like the word entrepreneur, even though I run my own business. But I definitely identify more as an artist because I do express myself, whether it's through the written word or it's on a podcast or it's speaking. It's all self-expression at the end of the day.
Yeah. What do you think the difference is between an entrepreneur and a business owner? Because you mentioned you don't like the word entrepreneur.
I mean, I kind of feel like they're interchangeable to an extent.
Okay.
But I just hear entrepreneur. I think a lot of people say it when they like haven't actually run a business. Like they have an idea and they run an Instagram page and they like, post something like quotes or whatever. No offense, because I post a lot of my own quotes. But like, are you actually making money in that business? Is it fully supporting you? And it doesn't have to be fully. It doesn't have to be full time. But is it, as my friend Tiffany says, a hobby or a jobby?
Ooh, a hobby or a jobby?
So a jobby is like a hobby that makes you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Business owner to me is like someone that's fully living off of their own income.
Interesting. I was one of the people that definitely threw the entrepreneur thing around because it's like Gary V, like be cool, right? Like be an entrepreneur. And then over the course of time, I'm like, wait, Matt, you're not an entrepreneur, dude. Like you own a job. Like you didn't invent something. Like you own a job. Like I had to get really clear with myself on that. And I think that, going back to what you just said, like Libra's like attention. Like I feel like I was doing that for attention. Like it was the cool thing to do. So like, oh wow, he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. That's good self-awareness though.
Yeah.
We all, no one's like, everybody does things that they like. That's like, I love to talk about the cringy things. Like, that's like what I want to know about people. Like,
the cringy shit.
Admit you're cringe. I think that's how you actually connect.
Yeah.
So it's great that you share that. You recognize it and you share it. A lot of people will never admit that. They'll just be like, no, it's,
What's a cringy thing you want to admit to us today?
Oh, God. So many. I don't even know where to begin.
Top three cringy things.
Like recent things? Like just like moments?
Sure.
Moments of cringe?
Yeah.
So, like, I got really triggered yesterday because I looked at my ex's Instagram and he posted something that I knew was going to trigger me. And I was this close to commenting on it and, like, posting it on my story.
You think that's cringe? Oh, you were going to post it on your story?
I was going to totally, like, respond to it and then post it. Like, I was going to be... That's not really cringy. That's more unhinged, I think.
Okay.
And this was, like, bright and early in the morning. I had coffee. It wasn't, like, a late night moment.
What made you go to that Instagram page? Like, do you follow him still or something?
No, but you always... Everybody checks.
Lurking, yeah.
More lurking just to see if, like... Just to kind of get a heads up, a pulse if something's going to happen. Like if he's going to say something off the wall about me or like just kind of, I don't know. Just you sort of want to know. It's curiosity.
Okay.
But it was triggered by something else. It was like he did something really like weird and toxic and then I like looked, so it's all a game.
Yeah.
But it was cringy. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, you know better, Cara. Like, don't go there. And I didn't do it though. I didn't do it. So that's a win. But there is like also like a part of me that just wishes I could just be that crazy person.
How do you release that energy, right? Because like that's important. So you saw something, you didn't act on it, but now you're harboring that emotion that came up. Like, what are you doing to release that emotion?
I don't know yet. It's a great question. Maybe I should sage myself. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. And it's funny you say that though, because I love, like I think I give really good business advice, but when it comes to relationships, I joke that I'm like I give like the anti-advice. Like I give like the
don't do what I'm doing.
Don't do anything I would do. I give the bad advice because like I just don't think anybody really ever gets it right or like moves on perfectly or gracefully.
Sure,
like there's always like stuff we do where, I mean, who's not like looking at an ex's Instagram? Every single person.
It's happened, yeah.
Right. If someone says they don't do
100%.
it, they're most likely lying.
Yeah.
But I tell people, I'm like, do what you need to do. Like, if you need to reach out to that person again, or if you need to say something crazy or do something or send the crazy, like, just do it and get it out of your system. So to your point, how am I getting it out of my system? is yet to be seen.
Yeah. I mean,
It may just go, and sometimes feelings pass too. You know, it's not like I'm
absolutely.
like stuck on it. I don't want this person back in any way, shape, or form. It was just a moment of like,
Yeah.
I could be a little nuts right now if I wanted to.
Well, I think that's and this is why like the work you do is so beautiful, because it's like you just keep it real. Like you're not acting like you're the person that doesn't look at an ex's page. Like you're
Right.
saying like, hey, I looked at it, it bothered me, it triggered me, it brought up X, Y, and Z. Like you're actually admitting that.
Yeah.
As opposed to a lot of a lot of other people that are in, let's just say, a relationship space. They're there telling you what not to do. Like they're telling you, don't look at the Instagram.
Right.
Whereas you're saying, hey, I did it. Right. And
Yeah.
I think that's like the beautiful thing about your work. It's like you kind of give like big sister vibes. Like you're my older sister vibes,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I try. Thank you for that. I mean, I think that's why I like creating more than I do coaching in this space specifically. And I mean, I do coach. Like I just did a breakup boot camp because I may not be great at relationships, but I'm really good at walking away from them. So I know how to leave. I just, so yeah, I think I would rather tell my stories and be real about them than be like, here's how to be a great wife or girl. I mean, I'm divorced. I don't think anyone, at least I haven't met anyone who has a relationship that I aspire to have one similar to. Like I think everybody's relationship there's good and there's bad. And a lot of people have more bad than they're willing to talk about.
Yeah.
So I don't really believe in like dating coaches and relationship coaches at all. I think it's such a personal thing.
Yeah.
So I purposely will not be that person.
Yeah. You have me pondering on how I would like, if I was in your position, like how I would have released that energy.
Yeah. Tell me, what would you do?
I'm at like 3, and I'm a guy, right? So this is a little bit different, but like,
I love the guy perspective, and I'm sure you have a lot of female listeners, and I'll share this. So we want to know, like,
I think what I would have done, number one, is like, I'm not good with stillness in moments like that. So like for me, yoga or like breath work, like I would love to be able to say like, yeah, that's what I would have opted for. But I think it would have been either like a run, like just to like move and like do something fast. Especially if it was like sort of like an anger or a rage that might have come up.
Yeah.
So like either a run. I've never done this, but like I really want to go to a break room.
Okay.
Have you ever done like a break room?
I've heard them. I haven't done it.
Yeah, there's one in Bushwick, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm gonna go to that. There's also one right by B&H in the city, and it's like you buy a bunch of like computers and just like smash shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would be a cool thing to do.
I'm just laughing because I'm like, I probably would like cry and listen to Taylor Swift, and you're gonna go break things. It's interesting how men and women both kind of like operate.
Yeah. So music. Well, you said that you love music.
I do. So that is like what I typically do. It's music, and sometimes it's like ragey music, right?
Yeah.
It could be something that like gets it out of my system, but I just
What's
think it's
ragey to you?
I mean, like any like kind of like hard, like aggressive, like rock or like like 90s rock. Like I love all that stuff. Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
But like any of that stuff, or like female kind of like ragey stuff.
Yeah.
Like Hole. I don't know. Like
so the cool thing about what you just said, like you were like, oh, I'll listen to Taylor Swift and I'll cry, but like the important thing of what I heard was the crying, because like that's a stress relief.
And that's that's movement, right?
Yeah.
You're just moving. Like I am a crier. Like I love to cry.
I love crying too.
Yeah. I'm like, people should cry more. It's energy moving through your body.
Yeah. I cried in front of 50 people last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I was a little embarrassed. I was at like this company get together type of thing, and it was the first time I was meeting all of these people in person. Like I've known them for 8 months ish. And we had an objective to do a surprise and delight, which is essentially like sending someone random that you're either connected to or a client of yours a random gesture, right? Out of the blue. So I chose an individual who just lost his mother. I met him one time. He's a client of mine. Lost his mother, but like it meant so much to me to serve him because he served our country. He was in the army for X amount of years, law enforcement. Now what he does is real estate, and he helps military members like rehome, like in San Antonio. So he lost his mother, and I sent it to him, and I think loss was just so prevalent. Like I'm still in the grieving process of my grandfather, and just like being able to do that. I didn't cry like in the process of sending him the gesture, which he loved, but I cried talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, dude, I could not speak. That's how much I was crying.
Wow. But that's
Yeah.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
people need, especially from men, like I think people need to see that. Like it's great that you were able to be that vulnerable.
Yeah.
And like in touch with your emotions, not just like shoving them down.
Yeah. And funny enough, you mentioned the word vulnerable. That's why I asked you the question earlier, like how do we share vulnerably but with intention? Because I think a lot of men these days are sharing vulnerably, but like with another agenda.
Like, look at me, I'm so vulnerable. Like,
Yeah. And it's like, what are you looking to get out of being vulnerable? Like,
Yeah.
it's something that's coming up more and more and more because, you know, we're seeing it so much more on social with like men actually embracing, I want to say more men embracing like the polarities that we all have. Like we all have masculine and feminine. But at the same time, I feel like, what is your intention with actually being vulnerable? Is it to be manipulative? Is it to
I've seen
be
that.
attention seeking? Is it like, what is your actual intention? And I don't think enough men are clear on that when being vulnerable, you know?
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. So let's dive into the new book, which is coming out soon. Don't Do Anything I Would Do is the title. Essays on dating, divorce, and romantic delusions.
Yes.
Why did you write this?
I couldn't not write it. So, you know, my past like is writing personal development, professional development books, and very advice driven books about, you know, putting yourself out there, being confident, running a business. And after my divorce, I started dating. So I got divorced in 2020 and I started dating, and it was so different than I thought it would be. And I had all these crazy stories, and I would meet up with girlfriends and just literally sit there over brunch or dinner and tell the stories. And I was like, I have to put this somewhere, because if I'm going through this, everyone would be like hysterical laughing or just like shocked at the things that I would tell them. And I was more so shocked at the way that I was showing up in the dating scene. And I was like, what is happening to me? Like, I feel so like not in control. I feel like this is a whole new thing. I was with somebody for almost 11 years. My
It's a
ex.
long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
before
a long
that, it
time.
was 7 years. So I had just 2 back-to-back relationships. And it was just different. And I was, you know, I just started writing, and I was like, I have to write about this, but I don't want to write about this from the angle of like, I'm telling you how to live or how to date and what to do. This is very much just like, here are the stories, you know, and it's this journey over the past 4 years where like I started off really confident, thinking like, I'm just going to jump right back into a new relationship. Then being quickly humbled by all of that, seeing myself just be so crazy.
Yeah.
And then coming full circle back to a space where I like really genuinely feel good by myself. Like I'm open to a relationship, but like really truly not just saying, oh my God, I'm so happy to be single, but like really feeling that way.
Yeah.
So it's a little roller coaster ride, and I think it's funny and entertaining. And it's the first thing that I'm writing that's not meant to like, there's no agenda with it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to tell you what to do and be your coach. It's just like, this is it. It's an open book.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What was different about dating post 2020?
Well, all of us, like I never knew what ghosting was. I didn't think that was a thing. I never thought like I was like, what is a situationship? I'm like, what the fuck is a roster? Like, I'm like, you're gonna date someone else at the same time as me? Like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense. Like, why? Like, just don't date me then. Just, you know, like, so I didn't really understand the dynamics. Like, I just came from like maybe more of like an old school way of doing things. Like, you just meet somebody, you hit it off, and you start your boyfriend, girlfriend, or you're just not.
Right.
So all of a sudden there were all of these different things at play. Dating apps were a thing. Hadn't been on like the apps. I mean, I did meet my ex on OkCupid, but it was like a desktop. It was like a website. You know, it was 2009. So all of a sudden I'm like, what is happening? Like, this is just so weird. Like, felt like people are playing games.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to play. And I was just like, I don't know. If I like someone, I'm going to go out with them. And if not, then I won't. Like, it got so complicated.
Yeah.
And then I also noticed like definitely power dynamics between men and women. You know, I was out here dating as like a really successful woman who's like super independent and like doesn't really like need much from a man, like financially. I don't need somebody to support me. I don't want to have kids. So like I was all of a sudden like, well, how do I show up and like not scare somebody off with my independence, but like attract somebody that's a man that can still feel like he can add value to my life?
Yeah.
There's so many different things
I'm sure
happening.
Well, let's break them down. Like, how do you, I mean, from an advice perspective, like how do you help someone, or what would you tell someone to navigate ghosting? Because ghosting is not cool, first of all.
No, it's just rude. Like, you wouldn't even ghost like a coworker or a friend. It's bad social skills.
Yeah. How does someone navigate that? Like, if you were being ghosted right now, like, what would you do?
Just ignore it. I wouldn't even, you know, like there was a time where I was like, oh, I would send a text and just, you know, like cut it off, but I don't know. I think I just would just let it go.
Yeah.
To me, that's like it's somebody's character. So what's the point of even like responding to it?
Absolutely. What about the roster? Like that was another thing. So when I hear you say that, I very much so have like old school values. Like, hey, if I'm going to date someone, it's one person. I'm not looking to date X amount of people at once. Like I don't vibe with that.
Yeah.
So do you feel like it's more of a values thing? Like what do you value when it comes to like the roster? Because that is happening so often. Like respect to people that do it. Like I'm not criticizing them, but if you were someone that is now intrigued by someone, you go on a date, but then you find out they have a roster. How do you navigate that?
It's tough in the beginning, right? Because you don't own anybody, right? So you're going on a date. I can't be like, oh, you're talking to another girl, like don't talk to her. Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think it's just more, I guess, like having a conversation with somebody organically about values, like you said. Like, well, I don't know. I think if I'm a busy person, right? So if I'm gonna date somebody, like I want to put my attention on them for like the 1 or 2 nights a week that I'm gonna see them.
Yeah.
I don't, number one, have time to date multiple people, and I don't want to be with somebody else who does. Like to me, like if you have a roster and you're dating multiple people during the week, like what are your goals and ambitions? Like what else are you doing with your life besides dating? So that's a little bit of a red flag to me.
Absolutely.
But I think like again, it's like you can't determine it on the first date, but I think by like the second or third date, you kind of know if you're vibing with somebody and you're going to make it a more of a consistent thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I it's interesting when no one really tells you that they have a roster, right? Like you're not like sitting across somebody at dinner and it's like, by the way, just so you know,
roster.
Here's my PowerPoint presentation. I'm sleeping with all of these people. Do you have a problem with it? Like no one says it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more and more common. And I think it's from a male perspective, to an extent, I almost feel like it is a fear thing. Right? I think it's a way for men to keep their power or what they think their power is to an extent. And I'm not saying all men fall into this, but I feel like if you have a roster, I think it's because of some sort of fear of maybe a full-time commitment. I think, all of that. Like, I really do think it's not intentional.
It's a backup plan.
Yeah.
Which comes from lack.
Yeah.
Right? And it comes from maybe fear of being alone and maybe a need for attention, maybe a need to feel like you've got somebody on the back burner to give you something you can't give yourself.
Yeah.
I think confident people don't need rosters.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And I think also it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's eye-opening just like talking about this. I've never experienced that where someone like had I mean, I don't really feel like that's a female thing.
Oh, it is. And this is the really crazy part. Dating coaches and I'm talking like the TikTok people, right?
Yeah.
Like they teach you to have that. Like I've seen men and women, coaches or experts, if you will, saying like you should date multiple people at one time. Like don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I think people are hearing this really fucked up advice and they're like, oh, I should. And then dating apps make it so easy because you can literally scroll through and have like you have a lineup in your app of like people that you're talking to.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the culture and how things have kind of gone. But I think that you need to just do what feels right to you, right? Like have the courage of your convictions and just be like, if I'm not interested in dating multiple people at once, I'm honest with people too. Like if somebody asks me out and I'm dating somebody or I'm just not interested, like I'll just straight up tell them.
Yeah.
It's
so crazy that you say that it is a female thing as well. I think there's levels to it. So like I've definitely been in a position where I've spoken to more than one woman at once, but I'm not dating.
Of course. There's a difference, right? Like that's what dating is, right? You're meeting people.
Sure.
You might have like a text exchange, a date plan with somebody else, you meet somebody else. But like I think if you've gone on a couple of dates with somebody and you feel a connection, to me, and this could be this again, don't do what I would do, but like don't follow my advice. But in my feeling, like as a human, like I would feel shady.
Yeah.
Like if I slept with somebody and then I'm texting another dude, like that just doesn't feel right to me. Totally.
Yeah, like I would feel guilty right away.
And like why? Like how many people do you need?
Yeah.
And for what?
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm probably offending so many people right now, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it comes down to values, right? Like if
yeah.
someone values something other than what's being shared, great. That's the whole purpose of a podcast. It's like, hey, expand your mind, expand your horizons.
Yeah, these are my views.
See beyond, right?
Totally.
Hashtag,
and listen, I've done it. Like I'm not acting like I'm perfect. Like when I got out there, like I was, just not that I was like sleeping with multiple people at the same time, but I would definitely feel like I was supposed to have multiple guys. I would get on an app. Like I was dating somebody last year and like he didn't want a commitment. So I was like trying to go on other dates to like get him back in some way. It was just like, it's tough.
All intention.
Yeah.
How do you navigate, or how did you navigate those power dynamics, right? I think that's important too. Like, obviously society in the world has shifted, like, and for the better, right? Women should be able to take control or lead or like whatever the case may be. But there are a lot of men that are out there that maybe have like a subconscious weakness where like that can't coexist with them.
Yeah.
So how did you find yourself navigating the power dynamics?
I think you just have to have open communication, especially in a relationship. And I think women need to, not that they need to, but it would benefit them to like tell the guy that they're with, like, hey, it doesn't bother me. Like, let's say that I make more money or that I'm doing this or I've done that. Like, this is what I need from you. I need emotional support. I need friendship. I need companionship. I need like a sexual dynamic, whatever it is that you're looking for in that person that is not that provider kind of a thing. And like, just have that communication, because people aren't mind readers on either side.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what the other person is looking for or wants. But I think it's tough. I think we have a way to go.
Absolutely.
At least I've experienced. I've been with guys who like say that they're totally cool with it and like love what I do, and then like they get really triggered by something
Because you get closer to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like telling me like, they're intimidated by something I did, or like they're comparing themselves to me, and I'm like, oh, this is not good.
Things are cool from a distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when they get close and you start to actually feel what that's like to be with that person, totally different story.
Yeah.
Totally. And I've experienced that myself, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm cool with that. And then you get a little bit closer and you're like, whoa, like, no, I'm not. Like, I prefer this.
Yeah.
So on that topic, how soon do you feel like you should communicate your values to someone that you're interested in?
I think it should just come up naturally.
Okay.
I think it's just a conversation that like just comes up, right? Like if you're close to somebody and you're getting close to somebody and you have deep conversations, I think it just kind of like naturally evolves. I don't know if there's like a timeline for anything in dating. I think it should just sort of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Happen or it doesn't.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Well, what if you're not clear on what you value though?
Well, that's a problem, right?
That's
you
a
need to
problem,
get clear. I was just talking to a girlfriend who's single, newly single for the first time in a while. And I'm like, you need a list of, not a checklist like 6'5", what is a fine looking for a man in finance?
I'm looking, yeah. Can you sing that for us?
No, I actually met a man in finance, 6'5", blue eyes.
Trust fund?
No, I don't think he had a
No trust fund.
I was not looking for him.
Yeah.
And nothing happened, just met him. But anyway, no, I just think that you should have a list of things that are important to you and not the superficial. I mean, yeah, of course you have to be attracted to somebody, but make a list of like, what are you looking for in a person, right? Like, does that person, do they value honesty? Do you value honesty? Like, what are the things like at the core? And look back. This is one thing that I do. I look at my past relationships and I'm like, what didn't work? Where did it break down? And how can I then take that thing and like bring the opposite into my new relationship?
How often are you updating that list? So I know you're newly out of a relationship. Have you updated the list recently?
Not yet, but I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that you have to do
do a postmortem.
To an extent,
Yeah.
I mean, because there's obviously things that we all walk away from a relationship with. And it's like, hey, I really love this about this person. Right?
Yeah.
Notice how I focus on the positive first.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I really don't love that about this person.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, there's always good and bad, right? So there's definitely good and bad. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is to go slow. Like, I have a tattoo of my ex's initial on my wrist, and everyone's like, you're going to cover it up? And I'm like, no, it's going to be my reminder to slow down. Because I'm like all or nothing. Like, I'm like such a passionate person, and I'm like that in dating.
yeah.
So I went full speed ahead, and I only saw the good in this person, but that's also all that they were showing me. Like, other things came out later, so I really couldn't have known. But if I had gone a little bit slower, I might not have been as fully invested. So I would have been able to like notice.
Do you feel like speed in which we date kind of clouds closeness?
What do you mean? Like, if you make yourself go slow?
If you go slow, intentionally go slower, I feel like first of all, you have the ability, in my opinion, to be able to see clearer than if you're moving at light speed. It's like, I mean, think about when you're on a roller coaster. Like, can you really By the way, I've only been on like one roller coaster in my life.
I know, I'm terrified of them.
So am I.
I don't want one.
So am
Don't put me on a death trap. Like,
So am I. But like when you're on one, you can't really see what's happening around you so clearly,
Yeah.
as opposed to if you were walking.
right.
Right? So do you feel like the speed in which we date has any impact on how close we get to someone or what we see?
Yeah, for sure. But I don't see, this is where I'm stuck because I wouldn't know how to slow down. Like if I meet someone I really like, I just don't think I would know how to like not answer their text or not go on a date with them, or, you know, like it's tough.
Well, I don't think you wouldn't have
trying.
to. Yeah, I don't think you wouldn't have to answer a text, but I feel like
What does slowing down mean, right?
Yeah,
So
what does
maybe
that
that's
mean
the
to
thing,
you?
you have to
Yeah,
define
yeah.
it. For me, I think it's just like keep my head about me, right? Like let that person show me who they are over time before like spending weeks on end with them. Like I was also in a long distance relationship, so it was
Sure.
different. So I was like spending like almost living with this person really early on.
that brings you closer quicker too.
Totally. Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
And you do see the sides that you don't like about that person, but then you also see the positive. So it's tough. It's really hard. I think maybe slowing down is just not getting too far ahead in your mind. I don't know if guys do this, but girls can totally project a fantasy on somebody instantly. It's like we already are like thinking, not necessarily like, oh, I want to marry them, but like, what would this be like? Or, you know, where do they live? How's that going to work? Like, you know, introducing them to your friends. So it's maybe just like keeping a little bit more of a practicality around it.
Yeah. I mean,
Like-
men definitely do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can speak for myself. Like, I'm a very imaginative person. So it's hard not to do that.
Yeah.
And plus, like, you don't want to move forward with someone that you can't see those visions with.
That's true.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
you want to have that. But, yeah, I think in regards to slowing down, like, I don't know. I feel like maybe, and this is going to sound very unnatural, but, like, maybe having, like, a rule. Like, hey, X, Y, and Z doesn't happen until after 3 months. Or like I don't see him for 3. You know, we're not allowed to see each other for 3 times a week until 3 months. I don't know, like
Yeah,
just random.
that could work.
Like it's a sense of less about rules, more about boundaries.
Very Libra of you. The
Why
balance.
do you say that?
Well, Libras are
Is that
about balance.
balance?
Yeah, the scales.
Okay,
That's like your sign.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it could work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have to see.
How do you exit a relationship but ensure that you're actually applying the lessons?
The lessons that you learned from that relationship.
Yes.
Just, I mean, try not to do it again, right? Like look at the things that you did and just maybe, I don't know, talk to yourself, right? Just be more self-aware, be as self-aware as you can. Ask your friends too. That's one thing that I do a lot with girlfriends. I'm like, remind me again why. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
why that fell apart, and they're like right there to remind me. I mean, they'll send me photos. They'll be like, look, this is what you dated. This is what you did. This is what you said, like screenshots.
Yeah.
So like definitely be open. And I know like girls are probably a little bit different, but we tell each other everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, let people keep you in check that care about you.
Yeah, I have those circles. Those circles are definitely really important. I had a woman on the show, Lori Gottlieb, and she had shared that after a breakup, the best place to actually implement what you've learned is in your next relationship. So her advice was to actually not sit on the sidelines for too long. She actually shared that like the lessons that you've learned come out in your next relationship. And if you've actually learned them, they won't repeat.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. For the first time, I feel it's so funny because I feel like I literally have been saying out loud, like, I don't want a relationship. I don't want to date. And I just keep meeting people and like more than ever.
That's interesting.
And it's so interesting to me because it's like, is the universe just like, here, like you should get out there?
okay.
Or is it one of those things when you're not looking, you find someone? I don't know.
My mind instantly goes to maybe the universe is serving you a person that is here to continuously share a lesson with you that you might not have learned.
For sure. And I think that is like what relationships are. I
Yeah.
really believe that. Like I don't, and maybe this is speaking as somebody who's divorced and who's had a lot of relationships, like I don't think there's like the one. I think people spend their whole life thinking there's going to be this one person,
Yeah.
and they put so much pressure on that. And I think every relationship teaches us something, whether it's 20 years or it's 2 months or it's 2 weeks. Like you
Yeah.
can still get something from that relationship, and it's still really important.
How many soulmates do you feel like you've had?
Oh God, a lot.
Yeah.
I think a lot. I mean, I think anyone that I've been close to has been a soulmate, even friends, right? They can be soulmates.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think it's a hard concept to accept that a soulmate comes into your life but doesn't have to be here for a lifetime.
Yeah, it is hard, especially if you're like anxiously attached.
Yeah.
Or if you just are like somebody that has like strong feelings, right? Like I'm a lover girl. I try to act all tough, but I'm a full on lover girl. Like I love to be in a relationship. I
Yeah.
love love. That's where I need to kind of be like, okay, you can still be that, but like be aware of what you're, giving up, doing, what patterns are showing up for you again.
Yeah. How do you find yourself surrendering to what you just mentioned? Like the universe is serving people up to you, but in your mind, you're like, hey, like this isn't what I want. How do you find yourself surrendering to whatever is just coming about in that regard? Or are you? Maybe you might say you're not.
I don't know yet. It's still new. I mean, I just broke up with this person May 1st. So it's like June, 15th.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this is the longest stretch I've gone on without even going on a date.
Okay.
Like I haven't even gone on one date. I've not kissed anybody, like nothing.
Yeah.
Which is not me. Like usually I'm just like, boom, like going through like my phone and I'm like, who can I text? Like exes, like the whole thing. I haven't done that. So that's progress for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think it'll just feel right.
Yeah.
It'll just feel right.
If someone picks up this new book, but they could only take one thing away from it, what do you want that one thing to be?
So, okay. I think that we beat ourselves up. This is going to kind of go against what I said about my tattoo and slowing down, but it makes sense. Just stay with me. I think that we beat ourselves up and we feel like we did something wrong, like we fucked up, we made a mistake, whether it's sending an unhinged text to an ex-boyfriend or staying for too long in a relationship. But I think that our mistakes are what make our stories, and our stories are what make our lives.
Yeah.
So if we miss out on the mistakes and the stories, like we're not even living.
Right.
So just do the thing you really want to do. Trust yourself more than anything. And just trust that it's all happening the way that it's supposed to.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where can people get the book?
So it's going to be on Amazon this summer. Just follow me on Instagram at the Champage Diet.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be pre-releasing it on my Substack to my paid Substack subscribers. So I'm going to serialize it and drop like 1 to 2 chapters a week.
Cool.
That should be coming out in June. And then the paperback will be out hopefully by August.
Okay. We're going to make sure to have the Substack in the show notes, socials, websites, Amazon link, all of that good stuff.
The Substack is good even just to start reading now before the book because it's got a lot of the stories that are going to maybe be in the book.
You're always pushing the Substack. I see that all the time.
I love it. Yeah, I have a series that I just released called Text I'll Never Send My Ex. And
Text I'll Never Send My Ex. What are some of the texts?
Well, you'll have to go see.
We have to go see.
But it's like, like you have, at least women do this. We have our notes app on our phone and it's like sacred, right? The notes app is where we just put it all the crazy.
Oh
so
my
this
God.
is literally my notes app
Yeah.
in the wild. Like I'm publishing it.
So what do? You just like write the text that you want to send in the note app and don't send it.
And then we don't send it.
That's interesting.
We don't typically. Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a couple cocktails and the text gets sent.
Well, that could be dangerous because then you can go to
Very
your
dangerous.
note app and just copy and paste and it's like,
That's the
hey, I didn't even have
problem.
to do anything.
We do it. We all do it. But a lot of us keep it under lock and key. And I actually decided to start the series because, one, it's healing for me. And I encourage my followers to comment with their anonymous, you don't have to say who it's for, but put theirs there too because it's a place to put it. So you feel like you're getting it out of your system, to your point about moving on and moving through things.
Sure.
But it's not going to that person and potentially opening up a whole can of worms and like going back down that road.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I have to ask you a couple last questions here. I ask these to everyone. Some might be slightly mindfuckish, so no rush on answering them. But the first question is, if I knew what Cara knows, how would my life be different?
That's a good one. I don't know. That's hard. It might be a little bit more filled with drama, filled with life, filled with. I don't know. It might loosen you up a little bit
Okay.
in a good way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
might do some
hypothetical,
more crazy
right?
things than you've
Okay.
done. I don't know what you've done. I mean, I'm assuming.
Yeah, sure. Well, what are the crazy things you've done?
Just taking chances and just putting myself out there and just. I mean, you do that for sure, but I've done some like wild stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of dating, like met a guy on Bumble when I was in LA, came back to New York and like flew back to LA and stayed with him for a weekend. We had never met in person, but I just like, but like I felt a connection. But I do, like, I will do things, and business wise too, and just try them, even if it looks a little bit nuts. But like, again, those are the best moments of life, right? That you can talk about and reflect on and learn from. So
I mean, you only have one go round. Like,
yeah,
sure, the soul might move on, but like
this version of you,
this brain, this body, this, you know, conditioning, the programming, like your way of seeing the world, like why not live it the way that you want to live it?
Yeah. So yeah, you might live a little more.
Yeah. What's a piece of advice you were given that you didn't want to hear, but it proved to be true over time?
Pay attention. I mean, this is going to sound cliche, but like really, like, red flags only get redder. How about that?
Ooh, what does that mean?
If you see something in the beginning, and I'm sorry, I'm tying this all into relationships, but it's so prevalent for me right now. Like,
that's what we're talking about. That's fine.
If you see something in the beginning that you think is a red flag, or you're a little bit like suspicious of, it's only going to get worse. So you're really only just seeing like a piece of the story. So if something bothers you, don't paint that red flag green. Just notice it and hopefully save yourself a lot of strife.
Wow, that's so good. How do we take off the rose-colored glasses?
Again, I think like it just goes back to really remembering, like, what are your patterns? What didn't work before? What did you do last time? What kind of person were you attracted to? Is this person giving signs of that? You know, I try to like go for the opposite now. I'm trying to go for the opposite. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, like just be self-aware, be as self-aware as you can, and be as honest with yourself as you can, right? Like honest about why things didn't work last time. And yeah.
How do you have the courage to, or what's your advice for someone to embody the courage it takes to identify a red flag and make a decision to like part ways, as opposed to staying and watching that red flag get redder or whatever the case may be?
I just did it. And it was tough, but I think I've really learned to like value myself more. And like, it sounds, again, cliche, like you're the prize, but like I really feel that way. Like I genuinely feel like,
well, you should feel that way, right? About yourself?
Yeah.
Like, that's
and
self-love, yeah.
Totally. And you should also want that person to feel like a prize. Like you should both be mutually adoring of each other, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was now seeing this like person with many, many red flags, I was like, they don't deserve me. You know, like I know that sounds like, I say that so humbly, but they really didn't. I was like, I have so much love to give. This person has a lot of major work to do on themselves. I think that I wish them the best, but like, that's just, I have to choose myself, you know? And I, like, to your point about them getting worse, I was like, this is now 4 months in, I can cut this off even though it was moving quick and I can recover. I don't want to spend 5 years recovering from this person.
You nailed it. Yeah.
You know, like my first boyfriend, it was 7 years. It took me at least 5 years of therapy to like really recover from how toxic that was. So the sooner you get out, the sooner you can heal from
and move
it.
on. Absolutely. I think that's one of the hardest things to do. And like, again, like attachment, not just to like person, but outcome. Right?
Yeah.
I think so many people go into a relationship and it's like, hey, yeah, I'm 31 or I'm 41 or I'm 51. Like, this has to be the one. Like, this has to be it. Meanwhile, like when we go into a relationship with that mindset, sure, like date with the intention of that if it's possible, but also with enough like looseness on the grip of what it could turn out to be.
Yes. And also, this is something that I'm learning. Like, love is not linear. Like, things come back around when you don't expect them to.
Yeah.
You might connect with somebody at one point in life and both go your separate ways, have entirely different relationships, come back to each other months, years down the line.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just have to be this like point A to point B to point C. Like, give yourself the space to be like, okay, I'm open to see where this goes. Friendships turn into relationships all the time. So you really never know. And I think, like, to your point about just loosening the grip, like, just flow with it.
Yeah.
Right? Let it flow without projecting a whole timeline of how it's supposed to look.
Absolutely. What is a question you wish more people would ask you, and how would you answer it? What is a question you wish I would have asked you, as we've been here for a little over an hour?
And how would I answer it? You're stumping me on these. Maybe like what are you afraid of?
What are you afraid of?
like everything, but
Are
I
you?
do
But
it
you
anyway.
do? Yeah.
I'm
okay.
afraid of a lot of things. Yeah. I mean, like lately I've been thinking of like, what if I don't have the next big idea? Or what if the next thing doesn't work? What if all this goes away?
Yeah.
That's been keeping me up a lot at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I remind myself, well, you'll figure it out. You always figure your life out. You've gotten to this point. But I don't think enough people talk about that. I think a lot of people want to talk about, you know, what they've accomplished, which is great, and how much success they've had or they want to have. But I don't think a lot of people really ask each other, like, what are you afraid of? And I don't think it's good to ruminate in that. But I do think that it's important to share that we're all afraid and we're all scared. But most of us hopefully are doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you do something you're afraid to do, or you work through the fear and
Absolutely.
you have,
yeah,
like you have a positive outcome, it just builds your strength, right? That's how you
Absolutely.
fortify yourself.
100%. Last question for you here. You make it to whatever year you want to make it to, whatever age, you write as many books, as many Substack posts, like as many offerings, whatever it is, right? You do all the crazy stuff. But you could only be remembered for one piece of advice, meaning not how you want to be remembered, but if I were to think of Cara, what's the piece of advice that pops up in my mind when I think of you?
Just do it.
Just
do
Nike.
it. I'm gonna take it. Just go for it. We'll alter
Just
that.
go for
I don't
it.
want to get sued. Just go for it. Just take the risk. Just do it.
Yeah.
What is the worst that can happen? I think what breaks my heart is I see so many people afraid to say something, afraid to do something, afraid to publish a book, afraid to make a move. Just do it. Like, what do you, like you said before? I mean, I feel like it's a whole theme of this conversation, right? You get one life.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
do the thing.
I love it. Cara, thank you so much for this. This is incredible. Super excited to amplify this for the second time, by the way. I mean, we didn't even mention that. Second time on the show.
Yeah, and it's wild. Actually, I want to listen to that episode again and then this one in comparison because it was only a year ago, but I feel like
it was probably literally 1 year ago.
Yeah, it's in such a different place. It's crazy.
It's a great thing, like when you're on a show numerous times to like look back and see where you were.
Yeah.
Like what a great like milestone marker. I really do feel like that might have probably been like exactly 1 year ago.
Yeah, probably.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
So for everyone tuned into this, you can grab the new book, Don't Do Anything I Would Do, in the show notes of this episode. Links to socials, links to the Substack. Also, the nonfiction.
Oh, the reading series.
The reading series. What's going on with that?
So I am launching a nonfiction reading series right here in Brooklyn. It's going to be essays, personal essays. I'm going to have people come
That's so
read.
cool.
Yeah, so I'll read each month, well, every other month for now. And then I'll have submissions open for people that want to read their personal essays on dating, sex, love, all the things with an unhinged and chaotic twist. So I want to hear all the crazy stories. So yeah, like I'll post that up for sure on the Instagram
Awesome.
and my Substack.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you could check all of that out in the show notes of this episode, reminding you that you tuned into this for a reason. As mentioned earlier, the seed was planted, right? Like you were here for something in this episode. And maybe it's to make sure that you're sharing this episode with someone that's in your life that needs to hear what was shared, right? So I'm going to put that on your heart and on your mind to make sure that you are sharing this episode. If you're on YouTube and watching this, you could always check the episodes out on audio and vice versa. All of that good stuff is in the show notes. Until next time, everyone, be blessed. Peace.